All right, ladies and gents, welcome back. So, we're talking about cell transport, needing to move materials across that semi-permeable or selectively permeable barrier of your cell membrane. And something we need to think about when we talk about moving materials in and out of your cells is the fact that your cells as a whole are microscopic, and there's a reason for that. And it is going to come down to this ability to move things across that cell membrane. So, let's take a step back for a second. So cells overarchingly are microscopic, but that being said, there is a range in size. So some cells we can actually see. If you stop right now, take your pencil, dot it onto your paper, and then pick it back up, you should be able to see a really tiny dot. And that is approximately the size of a human egg cell. You can actually see that with your own eye. Right? You don't need a microscope to see it. But that being said, if you want to see any sort of actual structure, the microscope's going to come into play. And that's the case for the vast majority of cells. All right, although we can see that little dot, it really doesn't mean much. And most cells are much smaller than that. In fact, your average plant or animal cell is somewhere between 10 to 50 micrometers, which, if you need some sort of context for that, is about 1/500th the size of an average period in your textbook. Bacterial cells are even smaller than that. Most are somewhere on the average of about zero 0.2 micrometers, which is 50 to 250 times smaller, depending on the range, than even a plant or animal cell. So they're incredibly small. So why has evolution decided that these cells need to be so small? So when we're talking about making organisms like ourselves, why are there just more cells as opposed to bigger cells? And the reason for that is that there needs to be a sufficient surface area to volume ratio, right? So volume is how much stuff fits into my cell or into any object for that matter. And then the surface area is the actual passable area that surrounds that object. In the case of our cells, how much internal material is there, cytoplasm, organelles, that kind of thing, as opposed to the cell membrane itself. And the cells need to be small enough to get a sufficient surface area for all of those nutrients and wastes to cross. So things like water, organic molecules like proteins and carbohydrates, food, oxygen, vitamin, minerals, those are all the things that your cells need to take in from their environment. So that all needs to cross the cell membrane. And then it makes other sorts of wastes, water being one, carbon dioxide often being another, that also then need to get out of my cell. So in order to move these materials efficiently, I need enough surface area to do it. So if we put some numbers to it, the smaller my cell, like my 1 millimeter block here, look at the surface area to volume ratio, right? I get way more surface area to the same amount of volume as I get bigger, all right? And really is just a matter of space, right? Think about trying to cram the entire student body into the classroom, and the only way that they have to get out is to go through the single classroom door. It's going to take forever to get everybody out of that space. All right. But if we go ahead and use that same volume, so the same classroom, same number of students, but now I take the entire back wall off of the classroom, now I can get people out that much faster. I've increased the amount of space for them to cross. All right, and that's kind of what's going on here. The volume in this scenario, in this analogy with these cubes, is all technically the same ratio. All right, when I break it down, reduce the fraction, if you think about it that way. But the surface area is so much more. There's so much more space compared to the volume, the smaller my cell gets. And so your cells will maximize the amount of surface area that they need to function given the volume that they have to do the job that they're supposed to do in an organism. So your cell size is overarchingly limited by that amount of surface area. All right. That surface area is going to increase much more dramatically than the volume does. So as that cell gets larger, the surface area isn't sufficient enough It's like stretching out a water balloon. I'm trying to stuff too much volume in not as much surface area. Eventually, that water balloon loses its homeostasis and pops. In the case of your cells, it's going to lose its homeostasis and die. Right? This is why your cells can't be so big. Another way to think about it is to take the same 100 cars going down 222 around Kutztown, where it's a 4-lane highway. You get to the other end of Kutztown going towards Allentown. Now we shrink back down to 2 lanes, and what happens? You get a traffic jam. It's the same idea. If I try to limit the surface area, aka the number of lanes on my road, I'm going to slow down the flow of material, or in this case, the flow of cars. And that just ends up leading to issues, and your cells would have the same problem. This is why when you think about things that are bigger than us or smaller than us, right, it's really about the number of cells you have, not about the size of the cells themselves. So that elephant doesn't have any bigger cells than you, it just has more because it's bigger than you are.